With exercise 14.7 reverse half, we're going to write a method called reverse half. So it'll be a public static. We don't know the return type yet, so we'll just do reverse half. And it reserves the order of half, or sorry, reverses the order of half the elements of a queue of integers. Our method should reverse the order of the elements in the odd number positions, assuming the first value in the queue has position 0. So obviously we're going to take a queue of type integer inside of here. If I can spell it out correctly, we can get onto this problem. We'll call it Q, and this is going to be our header. Now, since we're just modifying it, not returning anything, our return type is going to be void. So this is our Q, right? Public static void, first half Q in here. We're allowed to use a single stack as our auxiliary storage, so we'll do stack. It's going to be of type integer, so we can manipulate our integers in here. And we're going to set it equal to a new stack, where the parameter is obviously an integer. So how are we going to do this? Well, what I'm thinking is we want to take all of the odd values inside of here, and since we reverse it, this is perfect since our stack is first in, last out. We're going to put all the odd values into our stack and then pop the odd values out, putting them back in our queue. This will result in it being in a reverse order. So to do something like this, let's run through our entire queue. Our queue is never going to be empty, so we can't use the is not empty. We're just going to get the size of our queue. Now, since we are going to be removing values from our queue, the size of the queue is going to forever be changing. So let's make a new variable called size. We'll set it equal to queue.size. This way we can get a final variable of our size, or the first variable, and we're going to run through this entirely. So in a is equal to b, a is less than size, we have a plus plus. Now inside of here, we're going to have an if-else statement. If a modulus 2 does not equal to 0, this means it is odd. And if it's odd, remember we want to push it to our stack. So we're going to do s.push, where we have our q.remove. So we're moving it from our queue, putting it into our stack. Otherwise, we're going to do a q.add and then just a q.remove. So we're essentially going to be removing the even variables and putting them at the end of our queue. When we're done with that, we'll eventually be back at the start, just without the odd values. So that's going to be it for this for loop. Now we want to put our values from the stack back into our queue. And remember, we want to do this for the odd indexes. So we're going to say while our stack is not empty, so we use the isEmpty method with a not in front of it, because we want to pull everything out of our stack and put it back inside of our queue. Well, we want to check, well, not check, what we want to do is we know that it starts at the 0th index, right? So we're adding back into our queue. It starts at the 0th index, but we want to add back into the first index. So the first thing that we're going to do is a q.add, where we do a q.remove of our first value. So we're taking the 0th value and we're putting it at the back of our queue. Right after that, we're going to be able to put our odd value behind that 0th index. So if we do q.add and we do s.pop, well, this is our even index, and then this is going to be our odd index. And then we run through it again. This is again the next even index, and this is the next odd index. And that's pretty much it. Now, if we do have an odd number of values here, we're going to have something left over. You can see that from here. Let's close this off and submit it. And we have a problem here. Did not spell integer correctly. But you'll see it'll pass almost all the tests, but not entirely all of them. And that's because of this last part right here. So this one has an odd number of values being passed in. Notice how the 6 stays out front, and we have the same problem here. So what we're going to do is if our size modulus 2 does not equal to 0, meaning we have an odd number of values here, we're just going to do a q.add and then a q.remove. That way we are essentially going to be removing the first or the 0th index value to the back to make it so it's in the proper full order. And that will pass 8 out of 8 tests. Hopefully that helps your understanding with stacks and queues. If you have any questions, as always, leave them in the comments below. And if you want more problems, they're in the playlist linked below the like button.